Welcome to the 34th installment of my reading of S. Morgenstern's classic, The Princess Bride. When the knocking started on the hut door, Max almost didn't answer it. "Go away," he almost said, because lately it was only kids come to mock him. Except this was a little past the time for kids being up. It was almost midnight. And besides, the knocking was both loud and, at the same time, rat-a-tatty, as if the brain was saying to the fist, "Hurry it up, I want to see a little action." So Max opened the door at Peaksworth. "I don't know you." "Aren't you Miracle Max that worked all the years for the king?" the skinny guy said. "I got fired, didn't you hear? That's a painful subject, and you shouldn't have brought it up. Good night. And next time, let a little manners." And he closed the hut door. Rat-a-tat. Rat-a-tat. "Get away, I'm telling you, or I'll call the brute squad." "I'm on the brute squad," this other voice said from outside the door, a big, deep voice you wanted to stay friendly with. "We need a miracle. It's very important," the skinny guy said from outside. "I'm retired," Max said. "Anyway, you wouldn't want someone the king got rid of, would you? I might kill whoever you want me to miracle." "He's already dead," the skinny guy said. "He is, huh?" Max said, a little interest in his voice now. He opened the door at Pecksworth again. "I'm good at dead." "Please," the skinny guy said. "Bring him in. I'm making no promises," Miracle Max answered after some thought. This huge guy and this skinny guy brought in this big guy and put him on the hut floor, and Max poked the corpse. "Not so stiff as some," he said. The skinny guy said, "We have money." "Then go get some great genius specialist, why don't you? Why waste time messing around with me, the guy who the king fired?" It almost killed him when it happened. For the first 2 years he wished it had. His teeth fell out from all the gnashing. He pulled the few loyal tufts from his scalp in wild anger. "You have the only miracle man left alive in Florin," the skinny guy said. "Oh, so that's why you come to me. One of you said, 'What do we do with this corpse?' And the other one said, 'Let's take the flyer on that miracle man the king fired.' And the first one probably said, 'What have we got to lose? He can't kill a corpse.' And the other one probably said, 'You were a wonderful miracle man,' the skinny guy said. 'It was all politics that got you fired.' Don't insult me and say wonderful. I was great. I am great. There was never, you hear me, Sonny, a miracle man who could match me. Half the miracle techniques I invented, and then they fired me." Suddenly his voice trailed off. He was very old and weak, and the effort at passionate speech had drained him. "Sir, please, sit down," the skinny guy said. "Don't sir me, Sonny," Miracle Max said. He was tough when he was young, and he was still tough. "I got work to do. I was feeding my witch when you came in. I got to finish that now." And he lifted the hut trap door and took the ladder down into the cellar, locking the trap door behind him. When that was done, he put his finger to his lips and ran to the old woman cooking hot chocolate over the coals. Max had married Valerie back 1,000,000 years ago, it seemed like, at Miracle School, where she worked as a potion ladler. She wasn't, of course, a witch, but when Max started to practice, and every miracle man had to have one, so since Valerie didn't mind, he called her a witch in public, and she learned enough of the witch trade to pass her off as one under pressure. "Listen, listen," Max whispered, gesturing repeatedly toward the hut above. "Upstairs, you'll never guess what I got. A giant and a Spaniard." "A giant and a Spaniard?" Valerie said, clutching her heart. Her hearing wasn't what it once was. Yeah. A Spanish fella. Scars and everything. A very tough cookie." "Well, let them steal what they want. What do we have worth fighting over?" "They don't want to steal. They want to buy. Me. They got a corpse up there, and they want a miracle." "Well, you always were very good at dead," Valerie said. She hadn't seen him trying so hard not to seem excited since the firing had all but done him in. She very carefully kept her own excitement under control. If only he could work again. Her Max was such a genius. They'd all come back, very patient. Max would be honored again, and they would move out of the hut. And in the old days, the hut was where they tried experiments, and now it was home.
You had nothing else pressing on for the evening. Why not take the case?
I could, I admit that, no question, but suppose I did. You know human nature. They'll probably get trying without paying. How can I force a giant to pay if he doesn't want to? Who needs that kind of grief? I'll send them on their way, and you bring me up a nice cup of chocolate. Besides, I was halfway through an article on Eagle's Claws that was very well written.
Get the money in advance. Go. Demand. If they say no, out with them. If they say yes, bring the money down to me. I'll feed it to the frog. They'll never find it if they change their mind and try to rob it back.
Max started back up the ladder. What should I ask for? I haven't done a miracle. It's, 3 years now? Prices may have skyrocketed. 50, you think? If they got 50, I'll consider. If not, out they go.
Right,
Valerie agreed. In the minute Max had shut the trap door, she clambered silently up the ladder and pressed her ear to the ceiling. Sir, we're in a terrible rush, so, this one voice said. Don't you hurry me, Sonny. You hurry, miracle man, you get rotten miracles. There, that what you want? You'll do it then? I didn't say I'd do it, Sonny. Don't try pressuring a miracle man. Not this one. Now, you try pressuring me, out you go. How much money you got? Give me your money, Fezzik, said the same voice again. Here's all I've got, the great voice boomed. You count it, Inigo. There was a pause. 65 is what we've got, the one called Inigo said. Valerie was about to clap her hands with joy when Max said, I never worked for anything so little in my life. You got to be joking. Excuse me again. I got to belch my witch. She's done eating by now. Valerie hurried back to the coals and waited until Max joined her. No good, he said. They only got 20. Valerie stirred away by the stove. She knew the truth, but dreaded having to say it, so she tried another tack.
We're practically out of chocolate powder. 20 could sure be a help to the bartenders tomorrow.
No chocolate powder? Max said, visibly upset. Chocolate was one of his favorites, right after cough drops.
Maybe if it was a good cause, you could lower yourself to work for 20, Valerie said. Find out why they need a miracle.
They'd probably lie.
Use the bellows cram if you're in doubt. Look, I would hate to have it on my conscience if we didn't do a miracle when nice people were involved.
You're a pushy lady, Max said, but he went back upstairs. Okay, he said to the skinny guy. What's so special I should bring back out all the hundreds of people pestering me every day for my miracles on this particular fella? And believe me, it better be worthwhile. Inigo was about to say, so he can tell me how to kill Count Rugen, but that didn't quite sound like the kind of thing that would strike a cranky miracle man as aiding the general betterment of mankind, so he said, he's got a wife, he's got 15 kids, they haven't a shred of food. If he stays dead, they'll starve. So, oh, Sonny, you are a liar, Max said, and he went to the corner and got a huge bellows. I'll ask him, Max grunted, lifting the bellows toward Wesley. He's a corpse. He can't talk, Inigo said. We got our ways, was all Max would answer, and he stuck the huge bellows way down into Wesley's throat and started to pump. You see, Max explained as he pumped, there's different kinds of dead. There's sort of dead, mostly dead, and all dead. This fella here, he's only sort of dead, which means there's still a memory inside. There's still bits of brain. You apply a little pressure here, a little more there, sometimes you get results. Wesley was beginning to swell slightly now from all the pumping. What are you doing? Fezzik said, starting to get upset. Never mind, I'm just filling his lungs. I guarantee you it's not hurting him. He stopped pumping the bellows after a few moments more and then started shouting into Wesley's ear. What's so important? What's here worth coming back for? What you got waiting for you? Max carried the bellows back to the corner and then got out a pen and paper. It takes a while for that to work its way out, so you might as well answer me some questions. How well do you know this guy? Inigo didn't much want to answer that, since it might have sounded strange admitting that they'd only met once alive and then to duel to the death. How do you mean exactly? He replied. Well, for example, Max said, was he ticklish or not? Ticklish! Inigo exploded angrily. Ticklish! Life and death are all around you and you talk ticklish. Don't you yell at me, Max exploded right back, and don't you mock my methods. Tickling can be terrific in the proper instances. I had a corpse once, worse than this fella. Mostly dead he was, and I tickled him, and I tickled his toes, and I tickled his armpits and his ribs, and I got a peacock feather and went after his belly button. I worked all day, I worked all night, and the following dawn, mark me, this corpse said, I just hate that. And I said, hate what? And he said, being tickled. I've come all the way back from the dead to ask you to stop. And I said, you mean, this is what I'm doing now with the peacock feather? It bothers you? And he said, yeah, you couldn't guess how much it bothers me. And of course, I just kept on asking him questions about tickling, making him talk back to me, answer me, because I don't have to tell you, once you get a corpse really caught up in conversation, your battle's half over. True love. Fezzik grabbed onto Inigo in panic, and they both pivoted, staring at the man in black, who was silent again. True love, he said. Inigo cried. You heard him. True love is what he wants to come back for. That's certainly worthwhile. Sonny, don't you tell me what's worthwhile. True love is the best thing in the world, except for a nice MLT. Muttonless and tomato with tomatoes are nice and perky. Oh, I just love that. But everyone knows that. Then you'll save him? Fezzik said. Yes, absolutely, I would save him, if he said true love. But you misheard, whereas I, being an expert on the bellows cramp, will tell you that any qualified tongue man will only be happy to verify. Namely, what the F sound is the hardest for a corpse to master, and that it therefore comes out V. And what your friend said was to blow, which he meant obviously to bluff. Clearly he's either involved in a shady business deal or a card game and wishes to win. And that is certainly not reason enough for a miracle. I'm sorry. I never change my mind once it's made up. Goodbye. Take your corpse with you.
Liar! Liar!
Shrieked suddenly from the now open trap door. Miracle Max whirled. Back, witch! He commanded.
I'm not a witch. I'm your wife.
She was advancing on him now, an ancient, tiny fury.
And after what you've just done, I don't think I want to be that anymore.
Miracle Max tried to calm her, but she was having none of it.
He said true love, Max. Even I could hear true love, true love.
Don't go on, Max said. And now there was pleading coming from somewhere. Valerie turned toward Inigo.
He's rejecting you because he's afraid. He's afraid he's done, and that the miracles are gone that was once in his majestic fingers.
Not true, Max said.
You're right, Valerie agreed. It isn't true. They never were majestic, Max. You never were any good.
The ticklish cure. You were there. You saw.
A fluke.
All the drowners I returned.
Chance.
Valerie, we've been married, 80 years? How can you do this to me?
Because true love is expiring, and you haven't got the decency to tell you why you don't help. Well, I do. And I say this. Prince Humperdinck was right to fire you.
Don't say that name in my hut, Valerie. You made a pledge to me you'd never breathe that name.
Prince Humperdinck! Prince Humperdinck! Humperdinck! At least he knows a funny when he sees one.
Max fled toward the trap door, his hands going to his ears. But this is his fiancée's true love, Inigo then said. If you bring him back to life, he will stop Prince Humperdinck's marriage. Max's hands left his ears. There's corpse here. He comes back to life. Prince Humperdinck suffers? Humiliations galore, Inigo said. Now that's what I call a worthwhile reason, Miracle Max said. Give me the 65. I'm on the case. He knelt beside Wesley. He said.
What?
Valerie asked. She knew that tone. While you were doing all that talking, he slipped from sort of to mostly dead. Valerie tapped Wesley in a couple of places.
Stiffening, she said. You'll have to work around that.
Max did a few taps himself. Do you suppose the oracle's still up? Valerie looked at the clock.
I don't think so. It's almost 1. Besides, I don't trust her that all much anymore.
Max nodded. I know, but it would have been nice to give a little advance hint on whether this is going to work or not. He rubbed his eyes. I'm going in. I wish I'd known in advance about the job. I'd have napped this afternoon. He shrugged. Can't be helped. Down is down. Give me my encyclopedia of spells and the hex appendix. I thought you knew all about this kind of thing, Inigo said, starting to get a little upset himself now. I'm out of practice. Retired. It's been 3 years. You can't mess around with these resurrection recipes. One little ingredient wrong, the whole thing blows up in your face.
Here's the hex book and your glasses,
Valerie puffed, coming up the basement ladder. As Max began thumbing through, she turned to Inigo and Fezzik, who were hovering.
You can help,
she said. Anything, Fezzik said. Tell us whatever is useful. How long do we have for the miracle? Will it work? When we work it, Max said from his hex book. His voice was growing stronger now.
When we work it,
Valerie went on.
How long does it have to maintain full efficiency? Just exactly what's going to be done?
Well, that's hard to predict, Inigo said, since the first thing we have to do is storm the castle, and you never really can be sure how these things work out.
An hour pill should be just about right, Valerie said. Either it's going to be plenty, or you'll both be dead, so why not say an hour?
We'll all 3 be fighting, Inigo corrected. And once we've stormed the castle, we have to stop the wedding, steal the princess, make her escape, allowing space somewhere in there for me to duel Count Rugen. Visibly, Valerie's energy drained. She sat wearily down.
Max,
she said, tapping his shoulder.
No good.
He looked up. Huh?
They need a fighting corpse.
Max shut the hex book. No good, he said. But I bought a miracle, Inigo insisted. I paid you 65.
Now look here, Valerie thumped Wesley's chest. Nothing. You ever hear anything so hollow? The man's life's been sucked away. It'll take months before there's strength again.
We haven't got the months. It's after 1 now. And the wedding's at 6 tonight. What potters can we hope to have in working order in 17 hours? Well, Max said, considering. Certainly the tongue, absolutely the brain, and with luck, maybe a little slow walk if you nudge him gently in the right direction. Inigo looked at Fezzik in despair. What can I tell you? Max said. You need a phantasmagoria.
And you never could have gotten one of those for 65,
Valerie added consolingly. Now, just a little cut here, 20 pages maybe. What happens basically is an alternation of scenes. And what's going on in the castle then, and what's the situation with the Miracle Man, and back and forth, and with every shift, Morgenstern gives the time, sort of like, now there were 11 hours until 6 o'clock, that kind of thing. Now, Morgenstern uses the device mainly because what he's really interested in, as always, is the satiric anti-royalty stuff and how stupid they were going through all these old traditions and kissing the sacred ring of great-grandfather so-and-so, etc., etc. Now, there is some action stuff that I cut, which I never did anywhere else, and here's my logic. Inigo and Fezzik have to go through a certain amount of daring-do in order to come up with the proper ingredients for the resurrection pill. Stuff like Inigo finding some frog dust while Fezzik is off after Holocaust mud. This latter, for example, requiring first Fezzik's acquiring the Holocaust cloak so he doesn't burn to death gathering the mud, etc., etc. Well, it's my conviction that this same kind of thing as the Wizard of Oz sending Dorothy's friends to the Wicked Witch's castle, it's got the same feel, if you know what I mean, and I don't want to risk, when the book's building the climax, the reader saying, oh, this is just like the Oz books. Now, here's the kicker, though. Morgenstern's Florinese version came before Baum wrote The Wizard of Oz, the Wonderful Wizard of Oz. So, in spite of the fact that he was the originator, he comes out just the other way around. So it would be nice if somebody, maybe a listener with a PhD on the loose, did a little something for Morgenstern's reputation, because believe me, if being ignored is suffering, the guy has suffered. Now, the other reason I made the cut is this. You just know that the resurrection pill has got to work, and you don't spend all this time with a nutty couple like Max and Valerie to have it fail. At least a whiz like Morgenstern doesn't. And one last thing. There are some who felt the Miracle Max section was too Jewish in sound, too contemporary. Well, William Goldman, who wrote the screenplay for the movie adaptation of The Princess Bride, certainly didn't have an issue with it, okay? And he was Jewish. For example, there's a line in William Goldman's Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid where Butch says that line, "I got a vision and the rest of the world wears bifocals." And one of his genius producers said, "That line's got to go. So don't put my name on this movie if that line's still in it." And Goldman asked why, and the producer said, "They didn't talk like that back then. It's anachronistic." And Goldman explained, well, Ben Franklin wore bifocals. Ty Cobb was batting champion of the American League when these guys were around, and my mother was alive when these guys were alive, and she wore bifocals. It's said that they shook hands and remained enemies, but the line stayed in the movie. And so the point here is this. If Max and Valerie sound Jewish, like they do in the movie, why shouldn't they? I mean, a guy like Simon Morgenstern was Irish Catholic? I don't think so. And funny thing, Morgenstern's parents were named Max and Valerie, and his father was a doctor. So life imitating art or art imitating life, I get those two confused. It's sort of like I can never remember if Claret is Bordeaux wine or Burgundy, but they both taste good, and that's the only thing that really matters. So we're going to pick up the story again a little later, 13 hours to be exact, and 4 in the afternoon, 2 hours before the wedding. All right, where were we? "You mean that's it?" Inigo said, appalled. "That's it," Max nodded proudly. He had not been up this long a stretch since the old days, and he felt terrible. Valerie was so proud. "Beautiful," she said. She turned to Inigo then. "You sound so disappointed. What did you think a resurrection pill looked like?" "Not like a lump of clay the size of a golf ball," Inigo answered. Now, me again. Last time this chapter, I promise. And no, golf ball is not anachronistic either. There were golf balls in Scotland 700 years ago, and not only that, remember Inigo had studied with Macpherson the Scot? As a matter of fact, everything Morgenstern wrote is historically accurate. Read any decent book on Flornese history. And enough of that rant. Back to the story. "I usually give them a coating of chocolate at the last minute. It makes them look a lot better," Valerie said. "It must be 4 o'clock, Max said then. "Better get the chocolate ready, so it'll have time to harden." Valerie took the lump with her and started down the ladder to the kitchen. "You never did a better job. Smile." "It will work without a hitch?" Inigo said. Max nodded very firmly, but he did not smile. There was something in the back of his mind bothering him. He never forgot things, not important things. And he didn't forget this either. He just didn't remember it in time. I think that's all we've got for today. So, thanks for reading with me. We'll see you tomorrow.